All right. Welcome to our reading. We are so sorry that we have been prevented from going to New Orleans, but maybe next year. In the meantime, these Bay Area writers are joining together to read via Zoom and to share in community with you from a distance. So we welcome Suzanne Dykman, Mia Malhotra, Monica Modi, Elizabeth Robinson, Randy Prunty. We are going to read in a round robin style, so 3 minutes each, 4 turns each person, and some of us will be reading collaborative works. So I will start with work that I've been doing with Suzanne Dykman. We've been collaborating with female artists, and the first of these is Vivian Mayer, who was a photographer whose work was unprinted in negative form and discovered after her death. So, comes from a chapbook that includes our responses to some photographs. Man walking down city street, past a series of doors unattached to buildings, car leaving frame. The man who walks clasps his edges closer than the man who drives. Anonymous fender blurring. He puts his hands in his pockets. He holds his focus as though it were 15 doors arranged in a row. Where the stride is a measurement and a door fits within it. He looks ahead and that is focus too. The lamppost casts no light, but its shadow is like the man's sharp. Something about a row of doors that marks the barrier between one strictly visible portion of the universe and another. He's not looking at heaven, but who knows? Is heaven a shadow whose outline is precise? But heaven too is arbitrary. It holds focus like breath, as long as it can, and then lets go, gasping. He walked past 15 decrepit celestial doors toward this release. Weathered doors. Structures turn to one another for support, so I follow, lifting my face to weathered doors to mirror their behavior, how they model anger as well as an embrace. Element molded from water, bimineral, a kind of mud for skin, and with air, its discord and sweetness. I am the same, held well, unfinished. Crates. Wood to the mill, from the mill to a squared assemblage bound with metal straps, usefulness soon done. The craft becomes scrap heap, abandoned on a hill with others, waiting for decay, a slip back to sea level, anxious to become soil again, for the mixing with broken stone, which has also been forgotten. And when the image is the past, to become a tree.
Right, so I will start off with a poem called Where Poems Come From. And a lot of my collaboration these days feels like it's sort of in the shared life of my children and me, especially now that we're all home. And so this sort of takes its cues from that shared life. Where poems come from. Could be from under a duck's wing, gray-brown feathers flecked with light sifted through leaves, or from the duck itself, muddy brown, eddying along pond edge. Camouflage, as in camoufler, French for to disguise, or camoufler, whiff of smoke. Entering the aviary, you saw it first, a dabbling teal, scarcely distinguishable from foliage. Duck, I said, and pointed, quacked, and like that it was gone. What is a thing before it is a thing? Green-winged teal, how language dawns slowly, then all at once, perception matched to meaning. The dry, whitish lid works its way shut, reptile-like, up the eye. This isn't really about the duck, or the pointing, the naming. The point is that I saw you seeing a creature for the first time, you motionless on the bridge, as bits of debris shifted underfoot. Every day, you make some new utterance, bawl, more, meow, closing the space between the world you live in and your name for it. Surprise, hunger, spoon. Maybe this is about the duck, you, me, that dappled afternoon, the tender, wrecked moment before the duck was a duck, before it was anything but a whiff of smoke blown across water, which all of us were once. One time you saw a duck on a pond, a green-winged teal, and it was the first time such a thing had ever existed. Light startled off its back as it slid noiselessly across the water, bill riffling beneath the surface, turning this way, that, searching for something to eat, something we could not see, but knew all the same was there.
You know, I was thinking it's so interesting to be attached to this. It's almost as though I'm leashed to my earbuds right now. So this is the radius of how much I can move. And I have a cup of tea while I'm reading. So there are advantages and disadvantages to this format. So today happens to be a full moon, and I thought it would be apropos to begin with a poem that's called Moon Full as a Beaming River. Moon, this poem is for you. You come out to show us your full face, face round as a buttercup glowing from within. That glow holds us together, reminds us of moon nature, of restlessness within that comes out to bay after hours. Your horses gallop amongst us. Your critters, their chests caved with mystery, have made Earth home. A home so tremendously vast, one can only wonder. To inhabit is to wonder. You remind us to smile with the ghostly lips of a seasoned star. To wonder is to smile fully unsheathed. Mirror. Owl in heart sits mending rip that I may fall on light. That light may flit like feather, like jewel. That flying through owl may meet its own heart walking on stilts towards the sea, and sea, seizing heart, may long so deep it floats on its back, eyes open, love susurrating through glass of time. Timekeeper. Earth about to fall out of his eye, he waits at the door. Owl sits inside a black pearl, and magma is bruised at hip, beguiling. And the title of this poem is So Where Will We Begin Today? The window barely cracked open to let in light of sun. I had barely begun to celebrate us, barely begun to feel the pain of not being able to celebrate us. Pin that held us together dropped, and for weeks we continued to fall together, apart. I raise my head above the swamp we made. Mud's role is to clear. Skin make us beautiful. Draft of Yemaya's poem I wrote for you is still propped against the wall by my bed, unfinished. My mud-caked head rises above the swamp. I see the new world through red eyes.
I have been writing a series of poems lately called Earth Elegies, and I'm going to read some of those. This is Earth Elegy, Figures into Ground. Let all red dots be red herrings in a barrel believing they're on firm ground. What was thought and what was done inscribed on tectonic plates beneath the ocean. All out of innateness, we flail from figure to figure in a whirlwind of cutouts. Earth Elegy Amateurs. Unlock the tent with a leaf. Sing the bivouac song. Hand copy last year's calendar. With each raid on the moon, I place a bowl of stones on the stone to get the starlings drunk. Like them, we no longer worry about distinctions, here today, gone tomorrow. My power to deny is greater than your power to know. The retinal image remains upside down. The shortest narrative imaginable struts with a crutch. What should I protect with this helmet? Youth is no longer a term. We're all the same age from the end. Sweet little death trap tucked away in the dark matter, settled anguish, all inhibitions long since converted into mere likes and dislikes. If you can't see the mountain, it's flooded. If you can see the mountain, it's about to flood. Earth Elegy investigates shock. Come over here, that's a circle of dreams, be avoided. Their disarray wants to repeat and mobilize all the shadows you've ever thrown. Cut them off, like tributaries that end in empty givens. Come over here and stay for the divergence, full of rips to the real and a real hindrance to power, if you think of power as confirmed reassurance.
I'll continue reading the collaborative work Elizabeth and I have done based on the photographs of Vivian Mayer. Young man feeding pigeons as they rest on his hand and wrist. What happens in the public world hardly matters compared to the beauty that hovers nervous inside. Beauty as opposed to something more durable. The beauty of the scowl of concentration. Beauty's only wisdom is an awareness that stillness, its own stillness, will soon be frightened away. The arm motionless as feathers lift the sleeve. Fine white scratches on the wrist and hand. Pigeons. The wing of the bird flutters, mimics the cowlick on its owner's head, all feather, hair, and stares as intent from the keeper as the kept. Bonding blinds the holder. There is nothing but focus, narrowed to curiosity. One wants to be the other, untethered, to fly. Man in doorway. The pose of a ringed hand on the head protects against a blow or against inclement weather, or the hat in hand shields a pair of eyes from the world. I am not seeing and am not seen. Or I am grateful for a doorway, for shoes and socks when everything turns to dusk. Cloth slowly reclaims itself as thread. Dirt resting on a trouser cuff has traveled far to find that rest. A bed where one must make it. This is what lives. Curled fingers of down luck, the stretch to starry night, warm wind. Homeless man curled, crouching on the street. When we look at you, photo, we look first at who first looked at you. You, a curl of waste paper as it gets eaten by flame. There's a kind of circularity to each act of being, and you model this so well. Notice that I do not quite look at you as I describe you. Then, with a small huff, the gaze subsides into ash, into less than ash. But the flame demonstrates that a crumpled bit can suddenly and indeed curl as you do into shape. Which is this, body curved to rest or protect itself. The one who saw you recorded that she saw you, but never once consulted the record again. Empty space emblazoned with the rumor of presence, the looking in an arc that defers to its own absence, to drowse or hide in one's own skin. The eye just barely blesses with what it perceives, simplified as it struggles, but fails to complete its foreordained circle.
Held hands. Two distinct limbs move close to form, a perfect match. An arm against an arm, skin on skin. I am uncertain how I know they compose as one. Texture hints at what it is to feel the soft, bared summer, or maybe still spring, that season when light can once more be caught. Close up from behind of man and woman holding hands. Seeing is an intimacy, like the juxtaposition of plaid with stripes. A bare arm brushing up against a braceleted one. The sort of transparency to which neither the seer nor the intimacy seen have faces, in which neither the seer nor the intimacy seen have faces. Sight slowly deliberates on itself as a wrinkle or a pleat. The thing touches itself discreetly, where touch is imperfect, but only barely imperfect. A crease in sight that assures its own fidelity. Discarded bed springs tied randomly with string. Each assertion contradicts itself, and this amasses as a weaving, textile of bewilder and its wire thread. Wooden fabric for trellis, forward of itself the frame, the springs, place where no statement can sleep. Backward of itself, the great gloom, the halfway point, where the fabric is a surface of its own undoing. Reflection rouses its dark, where it begins to say something. A word becomes gauze, self-ruination, intermediate rest.
This next piece that I'll be reading is in conversation with some Instax photos that one of my daughters took recently. So I thought I'd hold a few of them up. if we were actually in a conference center, I would have put together a presentation, but you sort of get the feeling, I think, of these sort of arbitrary moments that she's captured. But I've seen this as a collaborative work because she and I have been making poem together for a long time, since the beginning. She would, make little arrangements of rocks and leaves, and I've always felt, to what else is poetry but walking through the world and gathering things that textures and shapes that sort of compel the mind. So this is a piece written in response to, but also sort of in parallel with the images, which is how all of my life feels in relationship to theirs. And so this is from In Stacks, a new lyric. And I should also say that there's a lot of quoted material in here from Susan Sontag, Roland Barthes, some from this anthology called Revolutionary Mothering. Jay Prosser's words are in there. And I won't flag what's from where, but you'll just hear it sort of woven together in honor of collaboration. One winter, I bought my daughter an Instax camera. Through her lens, the magnolia tree in front of our building looked taller, its creamy whites and magentas more lovely. "This is so beautiful," she said, and pressed the shutter release. The room of the camera may have shrunk, but the camera retains, in its name, a reference to that magical space one originally occupied, the dark room where one went to receive an illuminated version of reality. Photographs show not the presence of the past, but the pastness of the present. Is it possible for an image to be an elegy, for a photograph, as it captures the light of a lost moment, to be anything but? Let me look at one like this. The most interesting abrasions are not of stone, but of flesh. Through photographs, we follow, in the most intimate, troubling way, the reality of how people age. One day she will say, "I can't believe how young she was. Looking at me now, you would not know I was once a small child with blue yarn and barrettes in my hair." The smearing effect of time, memory, distance, and sun exposure. While pregnant, I became obsessed with the passage of time, something about the marks it made on my skin as it stretched past. A sort of umbilical cord links the body of the photographed thing to my gaze. Light is here a carnal medium, a skin I share with anyone who has been photographed. What I remember about my own mother: some days I returned from school and the floors gleamed, a shadowy figure that came and went, ornamenting the fringes. She was everything, but she was also invisible. Once I left a pair of scissors open on the floor and she cut her foot open, trailing blood, to the bathroom. How it feels as the frame that holds your life falls to pieces. One day I will forget how high the ceilings were, how its exposed beams collected shadows which drifted across the walls in complex shifting prisms. The light of this lost, mournful moment, as though filtered through a dream or a half-tone screen. To document the light is to catch the quality of time as it streams past. Photography is an elegiac art, a twilight art. We live in the presence of another world, faces lit from the inside. So much is mystery, so much we do not know. Bodies bleached by sun, faces haloed in gauzy light. How joy effervesces and what is lost in the effervescing.
I thought memory would be easy. It would be on tap, I thought, come coursing down, remembering, sleuthing down. Instead, these are rusty pipes, pipeline of connection with my ancestors' lives jammed. How did I expect thousands of entities of oppression to lift clear the way for ancestral memories, ancestral knowings just like that. And that worm of inadequacy. It is not that I've forgotten how to listen, nor that I do not listen well. Once upon a time, I forgot to save my life. It is not that I cannot remember, do not remember, though remembering brings pain, visceral fluids swelling in me, their keening ghost limbs entangled with open gashes in my body, crying, lined up in a chorus, all the ghost limbs in a singing chorus, and trees shed fluid into underground salty wells, so much forgotten. I observe my own tendency to open, valve then run, to close it before I get deluged. My body not yet ready to receive this knowing. Nervous system still beating. Young. T. R. A. U. M.A. spelt without a name, felt without a name, some shame lives, and fear of ecstasy, fear of engulfment by vast primordial darkness. I'll know it to be fear later when I open up and see it for what it is, fear of her. If I am afraid of being there all by myself, this is where liminal shadows swim, old ones, hawk ones, owl ones. Bones of nurturance and refulgent, crisp undertow of belonging, cosmos swims. And fish have smiles like grandmothers. Crusty ecstasy forms in underwater shells. Stalactites give birth to dragon eggs. The time she gave birth, what was born was a fleet being, covered in saliva threads, glistening, wearing a mother of pearl jacket. They say it was trembling. They say it was somebody's heart and joy. She wore her crown, jewels, and sat out for a while. Even her wounds glistened. They say Saraswati disappeared thousands of years ago. We know she lived in legend. I press to see her, she still hides. I roam on her dry riverbed, unslaked, hair wild, unsoothable in this loss. Crows fly in, grim over horizon, their song builds. River seeped under riverbed. I've gone dry. I sing dry. I am her and parched. I've pulled myself into my dry eyes. Rasa, emotion, memory, voice. String, stretched, thin, occasionally breaking, occasionally knotted. We used each knot as handhold to bridge this perilous, invisible river. Slow, grip by grip. Occasionally finding yearning ties, securing our hearts where they'd almost dropped into unrecoverable, unfathomable chasm. These knots that slipped into our own stories, securing us to our ancestral losses and laughter, rage and beginnings. The unseen lives long, bestowing beauty. Knot is not always made of water, not trembles in the slightest current.
We have a new dog, so every once in a while I have to tend to her. Earth Elegy, Low Tide. A vase is empty up to the edge of the opening, where it meets the emptiness outside the vase. A dotted line can be drawn to separate the empty zones. Unable to draw such a line, our anxiety flows like a brown river into a gray plastic sea. Not rope, but chain ladders. The idea is to prepare for even greater difficulties. Orders of magnitude adverbs will be needed. Earth elegy horizon. Dawn burns a boat-shaped hole in the bed. Identity ashes. Forgive those striking lights. Exposure from passage to erasure. Shame-filled. Facts cut. Sleep attempts. Speech acts. Earth elegy, or worse. As much as we speak, we're spoken. No, but yes peaks the unknown, the way a bird flies through water. To liquefy is to melt. To splurge is to hoard. To open a mouth is to access an act and enunciate giant, tiny notions. Afterwardness, a train with no intention, destitute as a verb. The opposite of us is to omit us.
Okay. I'll continue reading some of the responses Elizabeth and I wrote to these photographs by Vivian Mayer. Ruined springs. A web of threaded coil begs a favor from the eye. See again. The discarded should not be easily ignored. History's bed is ours until it splits, intention twisting into question marks. Forgotten, relinquished, what type of wood can frame the unmade? Support makes a quarter turn. Steel chases its tail. Bits of twine begin to fray, unleashed from knots. Cat's cradle, a cry held in. Seen again, small rendering, fingers that tied the strings. Subway shadow. The shadowed backs of unknown men extend, taffy flung against cobblestones. Absence, a casting become content, what we see and think. If I say shadow is winter, the negative of arrival, the before and after, truer form of two strangers, can I, forever disliking darkness that encroaches, mean absence is beauty? To scratch at it is to find what is required. Light and dark, always traced, leading to the other, touched. Two men seen from the back, standing on a brick roadway beneath a bridge. Looking is horizon, and this horizon elevates itself, looks over the shoulder of the two who look, tells the story of looking, thematic apperception test. Because vision is made up mostly of memory, of bricks, of columns. This is their story, that one inclined his head slightly toward the other, that the other bent his right knee. Because vision is posture, a memory of the body, is made up of painted lines on the roadway for those who do not remember how to proceed. Markers, rivets. What we know is not a story that discloses our fears, our wishes. We know the horizon is bisected by their gaze. They do not follow the road, they cross it. Man on crutches assisted through black iron door as passerby his walk on. We know the black door, the black iron, the black gate, the shine on the woman's black shoes, a shined black toe obtruding on the foreground. We hold these dark crutches to stoop through the black door jamb. We who see it all, looking back over our shoulders, we see the arabesque of the black grill work over the black gate, the black rivets that hold the panels solid, the black dots of gum and soil on the sidewalk. A crook in an arm, soft pressure, tells us we must go. The pant legs black pleat bisected by a crease. We did not know if it was smog. We did not know if it was smoke, fog, exhaust, effacing the other portal behind us. We did not know what animated us, where to look, what we could breathe. Pomade glazing black hair, a black velvet ribbon circling the crown of a hat.
So I'm going to continue with another collaboration project with Suzanne that is also another woman artist with whom we collaborated. In this case, Agnes Martin, and we wrote a sonnet crown. And there are quotes from Martin's writing and criticism, if you want to call it criticism, her philosophy and her musings in the pieces. To accompany the vulnerable thing to its destination. You see, the pattern is between itself, like the hand on the fabric, sublimely unemphatic. To touch this way, to touch is to create an imbalance, a fringe on the edge of what one feels. It contracts slightly in its gut, dark like reassurance. Unheeded, this is the order of the world. A dissonance reshaped just so, always just where I started, tracing a line from one hard point. If I repeated myself the second, third, etc. time around, it was as though I heard its voice, each voice, voices unequal and contesting or related, until a fabric rippling, tight at its gut. What is unequal swathed in perfection. Voices conjoined touch that darkness to the unknown end. See how it breaks here and recovers itself. A bit of blue. See how it breaks here and recovers itself. When small waves go back on themselves, it is a type of sleep and yet also a type of morning light. The gray is soft, the rippling of thought and underlay. I said yes. I said yet. Something very serene and flat could pucker on itself and become a compass. I said, first north, then west. I turn to perfection as I see it in my mind. I said, yet my mind. What I'd like to talk about is what is not. As memory overshadows, present time reverses order in near perfect lines. I think I will not falter, will not fail. Pastel direction, uttered, a very small gesture of exaltation.
Thank you. Let's see. So this next piece is a collaboration that I wrote with a few other Japanese American poets. One of them, Brandon Shimoda, is a blogger right now for Future Feed, and so he has a series on the afterlife that's going up right now. And so this was a piece that I worked on with him and several other poets. We were scheduled to be in DC for Split This Rock, and we were going to do a panel in March. So this is kind of a reflection on that. I don't know, I'm gonna read something really new. It's sort of strange to do that, but why not? So this imagines our panel as sort of what would have happened or what could have happened. And then since it didn't happen, what do we imagine it has become in a way? Notes on dust in gardens. Say Minidoka, say Heart Mountain, say the sound of being heard. That's how I imagined our gathering, that feeling, the shaky catharsis of hearing a private name spoken aloud. But instead, COVID-19, cancellations, cessation of the world as we know it. Along with everything else, the reality of our panel has dissolved into the lost, quavery realm of what would have been. We have become spectral in our own present, disembodied, ghostly apparitions, jittery pixels on a screen. What was it like the day after the vanishing? Now more than ever, we can imagine whole neighborhoods silent, empty storefronts, grocery aisles. Overnight, every Ise and Nisei gone. Instead, dust on the eyelashes, teeth, and the coils of the ear. How I imagine our panel as past, as speculative future, as sand blown in through the cracks in the floorboards, the walls where too hastily built barracks have shrunk. The planks were green. They didn't hold the moisture. They left gaps for the wind and desert. The swarm of history seeping into the present. Yet as the air settles, we stand, holding stories that make our spectral selves feel solid again. The Sakuteki, the world's oldest gardening manual, says, when setting stones, first bring a number of different stones, both large and small, to the garden site and temporarily set them out on the ground. Says, keeping the overall garden plan in mind, pull the stones into place, one by one. Heeding this wisdom, we set our stones, our poems, mediums, laboring in the desert, a garden plan in mind. Like our ancestors, cultivating life from dust, rock gardens, vegetable beds. We, descendants, gathered, we evoke what once was. We are history's apparition, haunting our collective future. You can literally cut a succulent from its life source, and it will sprout a new root system, an entirely new body, leaves, spines, crown and all. Which makes me wonder, when and how will it happen? What life will grow from this decay?
I also have a new poem. I wrote this in February, and I am actually going to switch on the light here because it's turning dark. And I wrote this in February, early March, and this one's for India. And it's called Home as I Knew It Is Gone. Everything was being shredded long before we noticed. We saw, but did not take it seriously enough. We carried on with our lives. We did what we could when we could not do enough. Lines between beauty and horror continued to blur. We let ourselves continue to divide. Silk threads we believed held us together, cut by fine razor manipulation. Warp and weft of values tore. We noticed it too late. There it is, mound of shredded threads. We are suffocating in it. Beginning of an end may lead to beginning new yarn. I start at the shore and slowly let myself be taken over by lapping water. Feet, legs, knees. Is this the trick? Just start walking into the ocean. Before you know it, you won't want to get out. What kept us civilized, fine, contained is gone. You too are ours, you who are killing. Ghosts of collective trauma riding you so hard. How may we pour spirit and magic back into your empty channels? What song would flow into you? What is the call of love you would hear? Cries of anguish do not seem to be able to get in. How will you become unclenched? Of what is the new world made? Don't tell me words. Freedom, hope, joy have collected dust. This language we have used to survive. As children, we tumbled onto roofs, elbows and angles, flying kites. Will we remember still to run after the kite? Will the roof remember to dream under stars? If all along we had lived in a dream, will the dream survive? Can we stack all hatred in a pile and light it on fire? They never taught us the real meaning of Holika Dahan. Burn all in you that is not compassion, love, neighborliness. Ram was to be love. Or was he? Each God image so densely layered with ideological agendas. What paint is nationalism, patriarchy? Is there, after all, an alphabet of life beneath?
This past fall, I had a chapbook published. I hope you can see that. Yeah, called Red Wax, and the publisher is Ethel Micropress, and Sarah Lefsick did the design and the cover, and all of this is sewn as well as the binding. And anyway, very cool. And I'm going to read some from that. All the poems in it look something like that. I'm going to start with the title poem, Red Wax. A drink from your hand, a pain is meant to be mine. Or instead, yesterday is offered. They say pain is good, that it's a signal something is wrong and you need to learn not to run into the street. You need to help us evolve. Your hand was shaking as I loved the apples. According to the dark spots, the light spots are holes. In part, friends are always open. Oh, I don't like the wind because it stirs up the pollen. I don't like when I forget something I've stolen. I feel like a crow trying to be a raven. It's important for you to jump in and name the spots, friend. Feeling like a complete bullfrog, I told them we wish to continue our journey, that we meant to climb out of the bay earlier, but we forgot. I told them it's actually good to dream, but not too much. I don't like flowers because they refuse to help me breathe. It's sad to separate thinking and feeling as if they're mind and body. Or go on chittering, I don't see why not. I don't see the need, but there are all those trees waiting. A lot of people disagree with me, but there's no evidence that they're right. You're definitely better, less red, since clearing the barbed wire. Now I'm learning to like more than just the smell of coffee. While I drink from this cup, a cliche is born. I continue describing destroying while erasing a circle. Worms grow, wings get eaten. The words fly around in no particular order, so it's impossible to know when they're interrupted. Have you ever had an episode of belief that precludes all your other beliefs? That is, do you dream your head is a chrysalis from which your legs stick out? For example, there are words like creek that preclude beliefs like flying, but not like sustain. No more trees in space because they take up too much room. Send them all back. Remember all the lingual detritus we witnessed? The way I heard it. The way it was told, birds can't sing in space. That's the blue thing I was trying to tell you about. So many others have yet to be found. Thank you for looking inside me. Thank you for the mountains, the ones that hold the trees, that hold the birds. Did you know what I meant throughout?
Okay. I have to turn the light on also. I'll continue reading the work Elizabeth and I wrote in response to Agnes Martin's art. Something very serene and flat could pucker on itself and become a compass. Adventures are difficult. Diving into a color to learn its name, walking a tightrope more slack than first thought. Foot slips over a wavering edge. The rose is actually gray. None of this is abstraction, not at all. The top says top, and the wash of pink that we would call skin is uneven, drowsy. Skin like light seems to disappear when scrutinized too closely. Look, I said, awareness, not spirituality. My objections are not moving through tenuous space for an answer, a miraculous idea which is not an idea. The line of blurred points ends, intentionally smudged, our own shades, abstractions. They are laughter. Laughter obtrudes on abstraction, flushing the skin on top of it. The line of blurred points ends. Between the lines, read and erase. Sit. Space is made, a musical score to be written, but ends with emptiness. Stability wishes for a straight line, grains of sand, embraced impermanence. To be rock, or better, to be a form for obedience. Form, or below it, absolute. Not form, but instead her form. All that arrives before. Over and over the hand writes preform. Over and over makes the line straight, the way, almost an afterthought, the way the hand makes humility a signature well below the horizon. Everyone is on his own private line. Humility, a signature well below the horizon. A very tricky enemy. Pride is a foreground, background illusion. We swim in it, but its waves flatten perspective. To make the shape of fish, I must know fish. To know water is home, I make that shape as well. Hint of wave imagined against a line. Fin, a bell, focused eye. I'd say the school of fish, oh, they were not fish, they were blank eyes. Floating on a sea of Morse code, and pride is not what they see, but the arrogance of seeing anything at all. I must know, not as the eye or as pride know, some buoyant current. The fish and the oceans are not undone.
So this is our last go round with everybody, and I will continue with the sonnets for Agnes Martin. Floating on a sea of Morse code. The pulse finds its way as canvas absorbs ink. What a word might want, writing but cannot write itself. Identity pushed aside, motion itself enough. For navigational purposes, one might say the world is flat, square, and rides upon a mottled frame. Wayfarer, this is contradiction. Your round cheek resting on the flat path, your flat fingers inscribing the plump blue nodes of the way. You think I speak to you. I speak to restless space, the need to fill and fail. A line supports a swirl. The swirl lets out a sigh, or not. At some distance, the world was serene, the tranquil dissonance that ripens my not being there. The need to fill and fail. The voices explain that I should cut back until there isn't anything there anymore. Explanation so different from instruction. The more marks or stitches, the more the plane integrates itself, the less it is a pattern, the less. Marks of contentment are everywhere, or so you tell. I listen with my eyes, following a path that you claim will give no direction. Though orbiting, am I lost? There was a defect in the voice, and I called that grace. Where voice stops explaining pattern, it begins to have a body. Cutting back on the absence, the edge of the plane curls around it. A body, a solace. Surface abbreviating itself with body. Your North Star must be here, among imperfect fields of spheres, an opening at the edge.
All right, last poem. Thank you again all for doing this. It's really wonderful to hear, I think, the work together and to see your voices. Thanks, Randy, especially for sort of corralling us. So let's see, this final poem I'll be reading is kind of a pandemic poem. My older daughter has been calling it the pandemonium, which I think is so fabulous. And I haven't corrected her. She's 6. I feel like you're allowed to call it the pandemonium. But anyway, that was sort of initially the impetus for the poem, but it's become sort of a family notebook, which is what I've titled it. And there are lines in it from Louise Gluck's Wild Iris as well. Ready or not, here we are. We've been lost and found, gone underground. We've pulled pea plants from their pots and marveled at the roots, pounded flowers to pulp, raised cardboard cities with only our wits and a roll of packing tape. We've danced like seeds, sprouting. We've been stuck in the mud. We've pickled green beans and transfixed, watched spices fizz to yeasty, bubbling surface. We've traced ourselves in chalk, turned our bodies to brilliant dust. We've learned to feast in the desert, to braid bread, to live shut in, bottled up, peppercorns and all. We've shuffled in grocery lines and paged through the New Yorker's grim spreads, emergency hospitals, corpses stacked 3 deep. Around us, the death toll rises. Something comes into the world unwelcome, calling disorder, disorder. An ordered home, we're baking. It's Friday. My daughters peer into the oven. They miss school. They miss their friends. I don't know how much longer, I say, lost too in this interminable landscape. Somewhere in the desert, my great-grandfather lifts a stone from a dry creek bed. Sui meaning water, seki meaning stone, sui seki as in viewing stones naturally formed. He brushes dirt from the rock surface, sets it on end. For days he contemplates its dimensions. A desolate island, perhaps, blueprint of some past or future grief. So often we've made life from dust. First strawberries, then carnations, roses by trial and error. Unearthed, we found the white of bones, wet of saliva, sound of singing. At the end of my suffering, there was a door. One day we will re-enter the house of the living. A local party store texts, "Open now, face masks and gloves for sale." My daughter chants rhymes, writes her name for the first time. She's learning the names of things: virus, yeast, pandemic. She calls it the pandemonium. Enculturation, they say, bringing a child into language from raw to cooked, from pale and unformed to browned. Friday, she kneads dough. Monday, she pushes stones into place, forms a Y for the first time. We touch the rough, chiseled edges and count the days. Outside, fever rages. It's spring. She picks flowers with her sister, wild irises with gold veins, bellflowers with red and yellow striations. Their bodies, so beloved, I sometimes mistake one for the other, climb into bed beside me. The hours stretch, elastic. Dusk lengthens over the trees. From my window, I can see the neighbor's lit A-frame. I was once afraid, still am, but every night the sun sets, and in the gloaming a star, or is it the light from a plane, blinks on.
You know, in the first round, I was a little too shy to show you the poem mirror on page. So since this is the last round, I will show you what it looks like, because it's interesting. I don't often work with spacing in this way, but it's one of my very few poems where, yeah, the poem is traveling over the page in this way. To end this round robin, my part in it, I will be reading a portion of a longer poem, and the poem is called Serpent Speaking. And yeah, thank you so much. It was so great to read with everyone and to hear everyone. Serpent Speaking. Which coiled rope will you pick up and unravel? Whose syllable seeded itself into your mouth and washed incoming sounds, breath of oneness? Is there a story that vanished under earth, was swallowed by earth? A burning maze spins under surface. Spinning fire gathers momentum, waiting to emerge at an eligible moment. We who live under belly of time often wondered how cosmos would turn out. Womb tree of mother grew. Time in its anxiety, buzzing around above our heads, white tail shedding fear. We learned to dive into mother's ocean whenever time came near. We offered ourselves to mother whole. Beloved's eyes are creased with age. She is all ages at once. O fragrant one, I begin lifting fibrils of her skin one at a time and lick. My tongue swells with the need to tell a story. Bodies begin dancing above my head. In the beginning, There was one clan, not two. Bird that broke free from belly of snake, snake that wiggled its way out of bird's beak, keepers both of ancient waters of life. Every struggle later, blood and skin collected under their fingernails. To recover, I go into past where I'd forgotten my bags and trunks. 3 silver-haired women are waiting with my baggage. Salt in their hair gleams with something beyond wisdom. I lick the salt and remember.
We're having some dog challenges here, so we'll see what we can do.
I'm going to read 2 more from Red Wax. This one is called How Many Face It. I've gone to cellar. I came here to chill. My bruises pull my mouth down. If this is, and I know it is, the shape of things to come, then what do you think I should do? Show me how. Not sure how much longer I can be diverse and still soothe myself. 1/3 of me, what you know is the Northwest darkness, has never been born. My new mission is road, journal, therapy, and making new friends in the therapy waiting room where we discuss the difference between ardent and withstood. They took my dog, the vivid one. I kept painting. To name a breed, hound, unashamed. I've decided to leave it alone. I know Deacon was here because I see flowers on the floor and wrinkles in the rug. I've been trying to speak like you to make it easier for you to translate. Finally, the bird flew down the mountain evening and drank up the creek. Like that? Or here's some paint for your tree room, a cross between chocolate raven and blackberry dark. Tree, bird, chocolate, they could become our words. Rain-fed nights, gourds really. Of course, we all sleep in empty houses. And last one, it's called A Few Steps Up and Down. Every time I cut a tree, I first proceed west a bit and count the birds. Sometimes I allow for airplanes. My hair is singed by the contrails. My sure place belittled by their exaggerations. You convince me the afternoon is temporary and should be shed to clear space for the evening's doubts. Name one place you could never settle, or an airport with lots of trees. You may not even think it, but I'm the lover leads to other things. Maybe I'll make some smoke pieces and spin them up into glass. Truth be told, it's the mud crumbs that inspire me, not the landscapes where you remove the lakes as well as yourself. Lightly, choices fall away, leaving only the immune. I pledge to live those choices and not worry about everything I've forgotten. But how can I forget that coriander is cilantro, not a whip, and a wisp is not a whisk, or is it? I attend to the communications, egress, content, and some phoenix fires. The 24 open spaces were in what way open and in what way spaces? All my lakes are identified as landings in remembrance of the water birds. I guess I'm okay with how everyone leaves early. Because of the wind, it's called morning. It's that architecture where we went up and down until we got tired and had to have lunch with powdered milk. Still, it's full of love. We couldn't speak of it, but then we could, but then we couldn't again. Now it's a park. See everyone next year in New Orleans.
And I'll finish up maybe with just one more as part of this project Elizabeth and I have been working on. I listen with my eyes Red is passion or wild anger or something like the happiness of one color. Allow the body to be lifted at a near perfect angle. Let it rise in the glow. A surface tremor proposes birdsong. Anything's a mirror. Flight is, or falling. A bird hovers in the rosy atmosphere. Its rhythm indivisible from the image of itself. Remove its excess, utmost brightness so it can rise. To move back and forth with attention, to sway, is being unable to fly, yet needing to create flight. There is worry here about the sky's brightness. An arm sweeps the landscape before coming to rest. Anything's a reflection, a tremor. Our happiness permits it to part from itself into trueness. I want to thank you all for being here. This has been just really lovely. And, in this time of pandemic and isolation and worry, the other night I was lying in bed and I thought to myself, poetry is bliss. Words are blissful. And I think to continue to have community, even when we can't be together, and to have those words to kind of hold on to and give us some hope and reassurance and connection is really a kind of blessing. And so this has been just a pleasure to meet you. And I do look forward to seeing you in person next year. And just thank you so much. Randy, and thank you for organizing this.
Thank you all. It was wonderful work.
Yeah, very exciting to hear all of you. Very exciting.
So I'm going to end the recording before the dog starts barking again or pees on the carpet again.
Oh, dear.
Thank you for your forbearance and for wonderful, wonderful readings.
Yeah, Mia and Monica, Randy, Elizabeth, thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you, everyone.
Bye.
Okay.
Let's